is one of the kind of more famous Seattle water sites. These are the floating homes of Lake Union. These were really made famous by the movie Sleepless in Seattle. A lot of you guys have probably seen that. The Sleepless in Seattle house is on Lake Union. It's kind of over on the other side. We'll go right past it on our way back in so you can get some pictures. I'll make sure to point it out. But these floating homes are really kind of unique to Seattle. Lake Union and just around the corner in Portage Bay are the only places that you'll see them. They started way back when I was talking about the timber industry, the logging industry that was here. When that was in its heyday, a lot of its workers were either relatively poor or immigrant workers. And at the time, we have a seaplane landing right over there. At the time, immigrant workers or non-citizen workers were not allowed to own property. So instead of owning property, they still needed somewhere to live, so they would grab a couple of logs, float them down to the water, strap them together, and build, a cabin or kind of a shack on top of that. After a while, this became so popular just because essentially it was free that Lake Union was crowded with at least, if not more than 2,000 floating homes. And at the time, they're floating shacks, they're really floating homes. So eventually the city got a little tired of the mess they were causing because they weren't hooked up to sewage or to water or to power or anything like that. So they decided before the 1962 World's Fair that they were going to clean it up. So they made a rule that in order to live in a floating home, you had to be able to attach it to city utilities. So now, if you were not, basically this is as far away from shore as you can be and still be connected. And therefore anybody else who wasn't able to, they would literally evict them, drag their boat, or drag their floating home out into the bay, or into the middle of the lake, I should say, with a boat, and light it on fire. So they just burned them all down, they sank to the bottom, and that was that. So now there's a rule that there can only be 500 floating homes on Lake Union and Portage Bay combined. So, where they used to be nearly free housing, now they've gone to exactly the opposite now. They're really, really expensive. Even these smaller ones that we're going by right now, almost every one of them is pushing $1 million. The cheapest one we'll go by in a little bit, I'll point it out. Even that one, last time it was sold, was over $400,000, and I'm sure right now if they wanted to, it'd be closer to $6. So there's lots of regulations when it comes to building these homes. They're only allowed to be 2 stories tall. But you can see kind of these, the two that we're going right by now have a nice way of getting around that 2-story rule. So they have 2 stories of a house and then a flat roof that they turn into a 3rd story. And what you can't see is that instead of logs, now the newer ones float on big concrete pontoons that are hollowed out. So they actually have a basement as well. So it's a nice loophole there, you're only allowed 2 stories and somehow you end up with 4. But those 2 homes are 2 of the newer ones in particular, and those are pushing $3 to $4 million.
I want to buy one. I can't buy one.
So this neighborhood that we're coming up on now is floating homes. This is called Roanoke Reef. Roanoke Reef is one of the newer neighborhoods or groups of floating homes built. Yeah, by the way, you guys can feel free to move around, stand up, whatever. You don't have to sit in the chair the whole time. You can look around and take pictures and whatever you like. Just be careful. So Roanoke Reef right here is a newer community, and they did something that was kind of intelligent. They spread out their houses parallel to the shore instead of coming straight out from it, and they staggered them so that the houses in the back row have a good view as well, not just the ones in front. Keeps everybody's property value up, and probably a little happier with your neighbors when they don't block your lake view entirely. So the floating homes that we're passing right now are kind of the smaller, slightly more affordable versions of floating homes. And if you look at that green and white sailboat, just to the left of that, you see one of those floating homes, kind of a bluish purple color with a black bunting coming out over the front. That's the smallest one out here, 348 square feet. So the size of a big closet, basically. view. Okay, this area right here that we're passing on the right, this is called Ward's Cove. Nice yacht mooring. Very expensive boats right there. And then just past those is the one and only area on Lake Union that still has room available to build. There's 3 or 4 slips available right there. Those 3 or 4 homes right there, the newest ones on the lake. This used to be owned by the Warren family. They had a fish processing plant there that eventually went out of business, and they decided to sell the property and use it for to license slips for floating home. Just the slip itself, not a house, just the slip, place to hook up, will cost you about $650,000. The house is on top of that. Yeah, great restaurant up on the hill. You guys talk about that's the East Lake Bar and Grill. Really good. Nice happy hour, cool place. Great patio right there. You can see over the beach the whole time. Now this building that we're passing now looks like a floating home, right? The Lake Union Cruise Center. But you'll notice it also has a big flagpole in the front and a life ring on the wall. That green covering there on the front, the second deck there, is actually covers the steering wheel. So that is actually a houseboat. You're not allowed to run a business out of a floating home, so the lady who owns that decided, okay, I'll show you guys. And slapped on a couple of outboard motors on the back of it. And every year they take it out in the middle of the lake and show the Coast Guard that it actually does maneuver and do all their drills and everything, and they have to drive it right back out of the side.
It's fine.
Pretty creative. Seattle is oftentimes thought of as a city of lots of rules, lots of government, poking around everything, but we're also a group of people that really likes finding loopholes in it all. Speaking of loopholes, this guy that we're coming up to his house, he found kind of the ultimate loophole, I think. This floating home on our right side with kind of the green tile front and the green curved roof. The fellow that owns that is a guy by the name of Dogfish, and his partner Dragonfly. They're artists, and they decided back in the 80s that tired of being told how he could make his house look or what he could do to it or whatever. They decided to go to the city and to become his own company. And they rented it. So that right there is sick of the government, that's one way to do it. Keeping Seattle weird a little bit, you know? The bridge that we're going under right now is the I-5 Ship Canal Bridge. I-5 is the major north-south highway from the west coast of Canada down to Mexico. It goes through pretty much every major city in the northwest and most of the major cities in California as well. This one is a double-decker bridge. It's got the top deck for traffic in both directions and the lower deck for traffic in the expressway in just one direction. A good the University Bridge connects the basically downtown and Mount Lake neighborhoods with the University of Washington. And the University of Washington is off the left side of the boat right now. We'll talk about that a lot on the way back. So now we're coming into another body of water called Portage Bay. Portage Bay used to be very shallow, almost impassable, but after they created the ship canal, it flooded it with a lot of water from Lake Washington, and became passable to bigger ships like us.
And the splash danger.
But if you take a look at some of the floating homes on our right now, you can see there's a little more character in some of these. That one has the garage door that's almost all the windows. A lot of these homes are really updated, really new. The one that we're going by right now, though, is the least updated and least new of any of these floating homes. That's actually one of the originals that was built in 1909 for the World's Fair to show the world what they thought Alaskan miners' cabins would look like. And it's been there since then. Still worth about 450 grand. So this area used to be kind of a housing area for students and for professors that would just boat or walk across to the university. Now with the property prices as they are, you can imagine not too many college students can afford to live here. They're priced out of it a bit, but still a really unique neighborhood. Something very unique to Seattle. Question up here is if it's the same that these are on the concrete pontoons like the ones in Lake Union. I think most of these up here are older, so they're probably, most of them are on the wood still. The newest ones are the only ones that are on the concrete. Yeah, isn't that pretty with all the glass? So you might have termites in your house, or if you're looking at other things that are going to eat your foundation or any of that, these guys out here have to worry about things like beavers. So there are beavers that live in this water. It's fresh water here, so they have to put up essentially chicken wire. It's a little thicker so that beavers can't chew through it around the pontoons or the wood at the base of their house. Something else to consider if you live in one of these homes, you can't stack all your heavy stuff on one side. Seattle Yacht Club is the they used to be based out in Elliott Bay in Puget Sound up in Salt. But after the ship canal was created, they moved into the freshwater here, which just makes it much easier for boat maintenance and a lot less wear and tear on everything parking in here. The Queen City Yacht Club is on the other side of the lake there, and I think they just sit there and try to outbridge each other and everything, yeah, because they're rival yacht clubs. It's very interesting. But one of the interesting things that the Seattle Yacht Club does every year is they throw a party, basically, that's called the opening day of boating season. And it's usually the first weekend in May, and it just turns into a big boat parade. Everyone brings their boats out. It's a nice weekend. It's a really good time. One of the things that they do is called the Windermere Cup. And the Windermere Cup is a crew rowing race with the big Olympic style crew boats. Here we go, as well. It's Nightmare Cup is a crew race that everybody likes to watch down here. They'll kind of line the shores of Mont Lake Cut where they're doing right now. It's about a 2,000-yard race. This is the finish line right here. You can see it painted on the wall. It's a really fun thing to come down and watch. Great teams in from all over the country and all over the world to race. And the Huskies happen to watch. The Huskies happen to be very good at it. Quite a bit. There's graffiti on the walls up here, and it's easy to find the teams that come into the race. Of course, graffiti is illegal just like anywhere else, but the cops put the other way up. A long time tradition of the teams putting up stuff to motivate themselves, keep motivating the team. Usually the night before or the day of, they meet all that stuff down there. So the body of water that we're going through right now is called the Salt Lake Cut. It's a completely man-made channel that links Lake Washington to Portage Bay. There were a bunch of people that tried to come up with a way to get something cut all the way through so that they could link it to road traffic, but it really took quite a while, many years or whatever, to get it actually happen. There was one guy by the name of Pike who decided he was going to start this project on his own, and he literally came out here with a shovel and wheelbarrow and decided to start to get to work. And the story has it that he worked for about 2 years and didn't get anywhere. He decided that it really wasn't for him. Gave the project to somebody else who also failed. And finally, when the U.S. Corps, the Army Corps of Engineers, that was too late. So we're going under the Mont Lake Bridge right now. Another drum bridge we saw up just a second ago. Kind of considered the prettiest bridge in Seattle. I agree. Call it Gothic style. The turrets there were designed by the same guy that designed a lot of the buildings on campus. And the need for this bridge came around basically when they started sports programs at the university. A lot of students live over on the left side of the, on the right side of the boat, in a neighborhood called Mont Lake, and Husky Stadium is right off the left side of the boat, and they wanted just to be able to get across. And initially they had some pontoons and such that they would lay down across the boat for people to walk across, going down to the building. So it eventually Stadium. We'll be getting a much better look at that on the way back in, and I'll video off some stories about it, but that's the stadium right there. But remodel and starts off a wood time. So off the right side of the boat now, you can see we're passing a little cart there with a totem pole in the middle of it. Totem poles really were not something that were created very often by the Native Americans, specifically around Seattle. They were actually created by those who lived up in but the influence did come down this way, and you see a lot of totem marks around the Seattle area. There's a bunch of different kinds of totem poles that they were used, so I read more about it over here. There's something called story totems. Story totems, tell a story, essentially, from top to bottom, or bottom to top. Carving it. There's also lineage or heritage totems, which give the given person or family's line. There's also one called a shaming totem, which is essentially the Native American bad credit score of their day. It's if you borrowed money or didn't give something back or didn't repay a debt, the person who you owed that money to could put up a shame totem in your yard, and everyone would know that you had done something that was shameful to your family or your tribe. If you happen to be interested in Native American history around Seattle, there's lots of resources that you can find out all kinds of information. Argosy Tours also does another tour that includes a dinner cruise and a salmon bake over on Lake Island and Tillicum Village, so check that one out if you're interested in those things at all. mats from around the world. It's really unique place. It also has a Japanese tea garden with incredibly manicured bonsai trees and gardens. Really nice city park. You can take either a boat or these wooden trails that sort of built up trails in front of us here that out to Foster Island that we'll be passing shortly. But one of the more natural areas of Seattle, there's a lot of wildlife hidden around there. There's some bald eagles. Lots of beavers, lots of otters, lots of birds. Now we're in a line called Union Bay, and Union Bay links up with Lake Washington, or is part of Lake Washington, and we'll get a little further along here before we hop into the lake. But over on the right side here is a big lily pad field here, right here. And I had a lady on a trip the other day who was really excited about the lily pads, and I wasn't quite sure why, but she was saying to me how rare it is to find all the correct combinations of factors to have healthy fields of lily pads like that. Apparently it's really rare. So